Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you all. I'm Shrikant Iyer. Hope you have recognized me by my voice. My name is also written there. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Great. So good to have all of you here. We have our Associate Director, Professor Amit Tyagi, sir, and our Head of Marketing and Admissions, Shri Yashwant Chauhan. So basically, we are all here together to, answer. There are a lot of queries I know you have in your mind. So probably, we can clear everything and we can, you know, when you join, you are joining in with a full vigor. Okay. So I'll hand over this to Yashwant sir, who will give a brief introduction, and then we will take your questions one by one. Yes, sir. Over to you.
Unmute.
Hello,
unmute.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please
Hello,
unmute, yeah.
everyone. Nice to see
Hello.
you here. I'm Yash Chavan of MIT School of Film and Television. You must have seen me in the interviews. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Professor Amit Tyagi, who's our associate and the complete administration as well as academics of the institution. He also is a professor for editing as well as for direction. So he will introduce you to the virtual lab and the online system, which will be conducting during this COVID times, and also how it will be coordinated between the campus as well as the online labs. Okay, Amit, sir.
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
Hi. The first thing I'd like to tell you is that, look, this is supposed to be a session to basically clear your doubts. So the problem with using these softwares like Zoom is that, the moment your number of subscribers crosses a certain number, you can't see everybody's face. So please write your questions in the chat and Shrikant will read it out and we'll sort of keep answering it. Whenever it's possible, we'll try and answer visually also. But, we may not notice everybody who's there because not everyone's video is showing up. That is the first thing. The second thing I'd like to tell you right off is that, as you all know, there is an epidemic going on in the country, which governments at various levels, the central government, the state government, and the district administrations are trying to run and manage. So everything we say is subject to their control. It is not something that we can dictate to. Okay, there are a lot of elements which are not in our control and we'll clarify them as we go along. Okay, now let's look at it from the point of view of when do you start. Our plan as per UGC guidelines issued is to start for freshers from 1st of September of this year. Okay. Now, this of course is subject to all the regulations, as I said, but our plan is very simple. Right from now, we are asking everybody to take on a package whereby you are able to access at least 4 hours of online classes a day. Effectively, it will mean having a 4 GB per day data package. We recommend that you don't do it over your phone and follow the classes over a laptop or a tablet computer because your learning will be better. It is advisable to wear a headphone when doing that, but it's not something we insist on. It's really your personal choice. But the 4 GB per day will be required because regardless of the physical starting of the university, because remember, physical starting of the university is subject to two elements. Number one, traveling to Pune from wherever you are based. Number two, after that, coming into the university and all of you gathering there, which currently everyone is very scared of and doesn't know how it's going to happen. We have put the necessary regulatory things as dictated to us by our medical expert. All over the campus, we have these hand sanitization, and we have where everybody's temperature and oxygen count is taken 3 times a day, and all that kind of things are there. But the problem with COVID is that nobody really knows 100% how it transmits from people to people. Okay, because of that, while we do have all these regulations, we cannot let you guys in if the government feels that the time is not right to have gatherings of people. Because there is one of the problems which everybody is facing in the whole wide world is that when university students and college students and school students return to class, university or school is not about class alone. It's also about you guys sitting and discussing things with each other. Now, those are the critical areas. I can insist that you wear a mask in class. I can insist that you wear a mask, but when you're talking amongst each other, are you maintaining a distance? Are you wearing masks? Are you taking adequate precautions? I can't take guarantee of that. Now, my problem is, if I can't take guarantee of that, what am I going to tell your parents if you fall sick? So that is where we enter into the realms of having to follow regulations. But what we are going to do is, regardless of where we stand in terms of regulation, your classes will start from the 1st of September. These, if they are only online, they will be 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours after lunch, because online for 4 hours continuously gets to be a bit tedious. Number one. Number two, each class being practically oriented will give you certain amount of homework exercises to do on your own. Things like shooting, things like putting together what you have shot, writing things. All that will take up your whole day. So it will be a working day as it would be as if you were on campus. But just because you are not on campus doesn't mean that you are not going to be studying. We are also going to give you lists of films to watch and ask you to write about them and discuss them in class, the same way as we do on campus. If any of you has problems accessing those films, we can sort that out. That is not an issue. But essentially, your education will begin very much as it would as if you were physically here. We are beginning your classes from 1st of September, very, very clearly. All the hostels and classrooms and everything is being prepared for you to come in. We are laying out the classes so that there is enough social distancing available. There are hand sanitizers available on, 2 of them on every floor of the building. But as I said, are they enough? I don't know. Will they keep you protected? I certainly hope so. And I wish I could offer you a guarantee of that. But unfortunately, knowing the nature of the disease, I can't. Okay? This is where we stand. I don't want to lecture you at this stage. I just want to clarify doubts. So please ask your questions from now onwards, and we'll try and answer them. Yash, anything else we need to add to this? I don't think he's hearing me. Yash, do we need to add anything else at this stage?
Yes, sir.
Or
Yeah,
do
yeah.
we,
Now I can hear.
please,
Yeah, I can hear.
हाँ तो आप
What I would like to say is that people who are in the red zone or in containment zone, if they are not able to come to the institute also, there will be online classes going on till they are able to come, and there will be also marked present. They will receive all the material which is on campus, which is being done, will be sent to them online. So whether you are on campus or you are off, or at your home or you're offline, still the classes will be conducted for you, and you'll be marked present for the classes. Okay?
Yeah, these online classes will have attendance
Now,
and everything very much like regular class. So don't
yeah.
think that it's a Zoom conference like this one where you can slide off when you want. Yes, you can, but you'll just be marked absent, and you'll still be required to keep your 80% attendance every semester by Mr. Iyer. Otherwise, he will not let you sit in the exam. There's
Yeah,
somebody.
Natesh has one question. Natesh's question first. What theory is exactly going to be covered in online lectures?
No, it's not just number one. It's not just theory that you are covering. What is going to happen? This is the beginning of your regular formal education at the School of Film and Television, which is not just theory. It is theory, practicals, and project work at the end of every semester. Okay, number one. Number two, what happens is we have, as you can check on the website, we have a common course for all BSc people. 1 year is common. What that means is that you learn everything. You learn direction, you learn script writing, you learn editing, you learn camera work, you learn sound recording. And the way it works is that you practice on these roles in other people's films. So the idea being that you get a very precise feel of how each component of filmmaking actually works. Okay. Now, after 1 year in this common course, which will include the making of 2 projects, we will ask you, depending on your marks in all the subjects, to make your choice of specialization. And it's only from the 3rd semester that you go into your specialization, which is of 2 years duration for undergraduates. This common course is of 6 months duration for the MSc people, and they have 1.5 years of specialization. Does that answer your question?
So there is another question. This is Kainath from School of Drama.
Yeah.
Basically, she is asking which type of books, textbooks we have to use.
We'll give you all the textbooks necessary. They are already loaded on our, we have a very big digital learning management software, which you will become members of when you pay the fees, and you'll be able to download and read those books. There's plenty of them available. I mean, it would be silly of me to pinpoint 1 or 2 right now, that there's plenty of books on both drama and on filmmaking, which we will make available to you. Because that's a part of your syllabus. We are not going to deprive you of anything. Does that answer your question?
Okay, this one is interesting. How would I do practical with my work apart from the theory?
At the first year level, a lot of your practicals are fairly simple, which we will demonstrate to you how to do even with your mobile phone, even if you don't have a still DSLR or still camera of your own. A lot of it you'll be able to do with simply a phone. This will not be the only time you will be doing those exercises. As soon as we are open and you can physically be on campus, we will give you the equipment to repeat the same exercises with professional equipment so that you can see the difference between the two. But at the same time, you will not be deprived of learning of the basic just because you are sitting at home. Our job is to guide you with whatever is easily available to you today. Okay. What we have on campus is a whole treasure house for you in every area of specialization, because that's what we do. But just because you can't access it today does not mean that your learning should stop. Your learning will continue with whatever equipment you have available, whether it's a phone or a DSLR. We start with that, and we will add to it as soon as campus opens and we are able to give you access to all our equipment. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, the other question is, when will we get a timetable about the lectures?
I think as soon as your fees process is over, Shrikant has already got the timetable ready. Basically, what happens is we do a 10-day to 2-week induction program where we just introduce you to filmmaking and the arts in general. Okay, just to give you an overview, okay, bhai, this is the whole world that you are now entering into. And effectively, it will only be from the 3rd week that you will enter into very specific learning and practicals will commence. The first 2 weeks will essentially be a theory kind of thing, introducing you to the various subjects in cinema and allied to cinema that we believe you need to learn. The timetable is essentially ready. We haven't sent it out to people because normally, as per university traditions, it is sent out to people once they confirm their admissions and the fees are paid and we know where they are staying and, you know, are we, whether how we are going to take care of them. Only then do we send the timetables. It's not something to worry about. We're a university. This is what we do. So don't worry. Timetable, you won't go without a timetable.
Yeah, every weekend on Fridays or Saturdays, we mark a timetable, a weekly timetable to all the students. This is a practice that we do. So the student is aware of, there's no fixed timetable as such for the entire semester, because being an unconventional course, there are a lot of things which can happen in between. So accordingly, a weekly timetable is prepared and it is mailed to all of you. The other question, sir, it is, do we have written examinations?
In certain subjects, you do have written exams, okay? Especially in what we call non-core subjects. You know, this is a university system that you are joining. So you are not going to be only studying filmmaking when you do an undergraduate course or a postgraduate course with us. You will also be studying what, like in any university, if you go to study English literature or let us say economics, you have to study history or philosophy or other things on the side. What we have done is we have chosen non-core subjects which will enrich your filmmaking experience. So you will learn history of art, you will learn the history of music, you will learn the history of literature. Because remember, you guys are coming straight out of class 12 for the undergraduate and from some other discipline, not filmmaking, when you are joining MSc. So we have to bring you up to a certain standard so that your filmmaking can be enriched by all these things. So in the non-cores, you will have exams at the end of the semester. Sometimes, like last semester, which is going on, just ended right now. In that semester, we have even done what are called open book exams, that we just give you a set of questions and you know, send in your answers after a week doing your research on your own. In other cases, we give you the exam just by email and ask you to send in your reply within 2 hours. And whoever does not send it by 2 hours is disqualified for the exam. So even online exams have been going on. In the core subjects of filmmaking, the theory component is not examined in great detail. Yes, you do get assessed on your scripts, but those are things which are a part of your project work. Because at the end of every semester, you make a project and you are assessed based on that. Okay? Does that answer your question? हाँ श्रीकांत बोलो, what is next? हाँ श्रीकांत, next question. You can't see it. Shall I answer it directly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, there's somebody asking, do the BSc and BA batches have combined work to do? See, the BSc is BSc in filmmaking. The BA is BA in drama, in dramatic arts. So they actually, except for the non-core subjects which are shared, they don't have any common classes. Their specializations are completely different. So they learn everything totally differently. So there won't be any classes together right now. It is only in the final year of BA in dramatic arts that they are officially permitted to come and act in the SFT student films. They do act, of course, even without that on their own, but we do a formal training process of how to act for camera in their final semester after they have mastered the rest of their drama process.
So, there's one particular question which has been asked by a lot of students as to what sort of subjects we cover in our course. What, like, you know, in conventional courses, there are about 6 to 8 subjects which are covered, but ours are core and non-core. So basically, you differentiated that. But if you can add something more to it, it will make everyone, you know, a bit.
See, essentially, okay. Let's go into this a little bit more. See that, let's divide it up. We normally divide our course into 2 parts. One is the part where everything is common and everybody learns everything. Okay. The second is the part where you are specialized in a certain subject. So let me try and answer the question for both parts. When you're doing the common course, which is for 1 year in the case of BSc and for 6 months in the case of MSc, what happens is that you have equal number of classes in each of the disciplines of cinema. So you will have equal number of editing classes, sound classes, cinematography classes, script writing classes, and direction classes. And alongside, you will have certain amount of classes in history of cinema and film appreciation. Those are not too many, but they are there, definitely there in the common course. This will give you a range of subjects. Now you will need to be tested on all this. So we will divide, for some of them, the final project that you do is enough. But for others, the other thing you need to remember is that in our kind of courses, the very important component is what we call continuous assessment. What that means is how you perform in class on a day-to-day basis. The teacher is actually assessing your progress every day and mapping it on just like your attendance, alongside that on a day-to-day basis. He or she will not be giving you marks on this at the daily stage, but at the end of the semester, when they submit this internal assessment or continuous assessment, whatever term you wish to use for it, when they submit this assessment to the academic office, they will quantify it into marks. So if you've not been attending classes, then there will be a problem because you will not have scored anything on continuous assessment. This has the other effect also. Let me just give you the most simple, obvious example. Supposing you attend, a semester is roughly about 5.5, 6 months. Now, supposing you have attended 4 months of lectures, but at the end of it, you have fallen ill and you are not able to do your final project for that semester. Now, on paper, my academic council demands that this is your final project is your assessment. And if somebody has not done it, he or she cannot be promoted to the next semester. But we have been given a liberty that if a person has done well enough in his or her continuous assessment, and the faculty agrees that no, this guy will do well, let's take him to the next semester. He's done very well in class, in all the things. So we promote them to the next semester without waiting for them to do their projects. So that is the advantage you get in the continuous assessment system. Chalo Shrikant, bolo.
So there was one question as to when the fees has to be paid. Can it be delayed?
You are the man. You and
yes.
Yashwant Rao are the man.
And the second question is from Karan Venkat, where he's asking, can there be a delay in paying the college fees after paying the admission fees as banks aren't responding properly due to COVID situation? So basically, I'll put this two questions in one answer is that the first year fees has to be paid within the first semester's examination form date. It's like, every semester we have to fill in the examination form. Before that, we have to pay that particular year's fees. So let's say that 2021 is the year of admission. So 2021's fees has to be paid within the first 5 months. Okay, there are certain dates which I have put and send it to you with your selection letter. If not possible to pay within that date, we can give you relaxation for that. But then, before the examination form is filled, you have to pay the fees. Unless and until there is, some very unfortunate condition which occurs or something of that sorts, probably we will have to take certain approvals for that. But then it doesn't happen to everyone. So this is something which is very important for everyone to know. Now, I believe that answers your question also, Karan. We have 4 to 5 months in our hands. If whatever the situation may be, the process of the bank has to be completed within that time. Okay. So if it is not happening or something of that other is there, we can probably think about it. We can evaluate our situation. We can put it across to the university officer. Let's see if some consideration can be taken on that. So this is the thing with the fees. The other question, sir, for you is what type of project will be there at the end of semester for MSc in screenwriting and direction?
Why? This is a film school. So I'm not going to ask you to do a biology experiment at the end of second semester, right? In a film school, you make films. What else do you do? So there will be films of various durations. There will be limitations initially that you can only shoot in our campus and only shoot with very simple cameras. And as you learn more, you will progress to longer duration films in better locations. You will be allowed to go outside the location, outside of the campus with your equipment. As your confidence grows, right now you have no clue on what it means to be actually shooting with professional equipment. Once you practice, then you learn. Eventually, you will do one long documentary and a fiction film, which will in final year, which will become like your showreel. When you go to look for work and somebody wants to know, okay, you claim to be a filmmaker, what have you done? So those will be the films you'll be able to show to get work, a documentary and a fiction project, both of between 15 to 20 minutes in duration, made with top quality professional equipment. That is what you will end up making. Does that answer your question?
I think it should. The other question is, sir, is there a minimum requirement of gear example, laptop, camera from our side? I mean, do the student need to bring in laptop or camera with them?
Not the laptop will be required right now, as I just spelled out to you, that because of the online classes condition, we would want you to have either a laptop or a tablet. We are okay with both, but not a phone, because it's better if you have a larger screen in case the teacher is showing you film clips and things like that, or some Excel sheet where you get unnecessarily can't read on a phone. Now, because of that, we advise that you take a laptop or a tablet computer, and most importantly, make sure that you have a 4 GB per day data connection, because otherwise your class will get cut. And we feel that less than 4 hours a day, you can't have a lecture, you can't have a real classroom situation. Then it'll be like a friends gathering on Zoom. It won't be more serious than that, right? So to ensure that we would insist that more than the kind of computer you have, on the actual 4 GB a day connection.
You would not require any film equipment. Cameras and everything on campus will be provided by the institution. So don't think of getting cameras or anything.
For the moment, you're going to be joining first year. For the moment, all the practicals will give you to do on your own while at home. We are quite okay if you are shooting them with your mobile phones. I'm not specifying any model that you must get an iPhone and shoot with that. Whatever you have available, shoot with that. We are going to teach you very simple, basic things. And for anything which is little more complicated than that, we'll ask you to, when you come back to campus, then in campus, you can replicate that with professional equipment. So don't worry unduly about equipment. I'm not going to ask you to, buy your own equipment and I teach you by remote control. It doesn't work like that. This is very much a hands-on business, where to be in a group and to learn together is very important. So when eventually, when you watch a film, you never ask the question, which is the camera they shot with, or was it any good? You worry about the story and a few thousand other things, but you don't worry about which goddamn camera they use, right? I don't know which was the last film you saw in which you asked that, which is the camera on which it was shot, or which is the system on which the sound was recorded. Who cares? Nobody does. When you go to a cinema hall, you go to watch a movie. When you put on Netflix or watch a TV program, you watch the program. You don't worry how it was shot. So don't worry too much about those questions right now. Okay?
Yes, there's one question from Jay. What are the updated dates for the fees payment? Jay, like I have told everyone, is the first installment date I'll let you know. The moment 1st September is the date of opening, probably on August 15th till 1st September, you have to pay the first installment. Later on, I'll update you with the dates of the second and third installment. So there is one particular question which I would like to read, is that if the present restriction on movements continue for another 3-4 months, how the first semester will be completed? Will it get prolonged suitably?
See, we'll basically adapted everything in the first semester to an online situation. So we are quite prepared to teach you everything online for the first semester. We'll be teaching the other semesters also online, because you aren't the only one. There are other semesters to be taught. We already have other semesters who are there right now. So this is something we'll be doing for everybody. But right now, nobody can predict the situation, because, it may be the case that we may be allowed to open on 1st of September. And then 15 days later, again, there is a lockdown because there is some problem. then what am I going to tell you? You know, I have no clue on those things. It's happening all over the world. I mean, countries like Hong Kong and most of Europe is having second and third waves of the disease. China's had a major second wave. So no one can predict where we are headed for until such time as we have a vaccine or a clear-cut cure for COVID available. At the moment, as we talk, we don't have either. World over, we are experimenting with medicine and plasma therapy and all kinds of things, but it is working for some people, it is not working for some people. So you can't claim that it's the cure for everyone. So there is a very, very dynamic, evolving situation, which is not in anybody's control. Okay. So let us accept that, but that is not to say that you guys should not be learning. Your job is to teach you filmmaking, right? So we're going to do that. We're not going to back out of that part of the responsibility. We're going to teach you filmmaking and ensure that, you know, your education does not stop, come what may. COVIDs will come and COVIDs will go. But we have to continue your education, because at the end of 3 years, I can't have you say, oh, I don't know this because at that time there was COVID. I can't tell you that, right? Neither should you be telling me that I didn't learn this because at that time there was COVID. I mean, to hell with it. We've got to learn, man. We've got to learn. We've got to finish our course. We've got to get on with our lives, which are going to move beyond COVID at some point in time, right? So let's think of the eventual thing that, you know, we are all going to move on.
There is a question from Rhythm Chatterjee. Yes, sir, you can answer this. Sir, is the admission still going on? Because on the website it is showing that admission is still going on.
Yashwantrao, boliye.
Yeah. No, the admission is very much on. I don't know which website you're looking at. Might be the NIT ADT website you must have seen. But
NIT stopped?
No.
No, the admission is still on. And we are taking provisional admission fees up to 31st July. So if you have to go ahead and fill up your fee payment and, you know, take your admission.
Fill up the form and proceed. See, all the class 12
Forms are filled
results
up
are not out.
now.
Yeah.
If you have received a letter, you should proceed ahead with paying your provisional fees.
So this question is, sir, do we have any concession chances in the fees?
You are the man to answer.
This morning also I received a call from a student who's saying that because of this COVID condition, can we look for some concession? I said no, because particularly in our department of education, it's not possible as such to decrease the fees, because any more light you can throw in the subject, sir.
No, plus we are shortlisting students now. So if you give concession to one, then it is not in the university policy anyway. It's a private university, and we have shortlisting, so we cannot deprive other people of, you know, admission. So we cannot say there can be any concession here at all.
No, you can do, there are two options. If you are not able to pay your fees, but you would like to be admitted to, let us say, our institution, you do have two options. One, you can take a bank loan, which is easily available. If you're having problems with that, please consult us. We have a bank on campus, which is Bank of India, nationalized bank. We can guide you with the process. Number two, there are a certain amount of scholarships given out for technical education by most state governments. Okay. So do check your own state, and you should be able to get, I know for a fact that Maharashtra government gives out quite a few scholarships to students to study higher in technical subjects. We are recognized as a technical subject in Maharashtra. There are a certain number of state government scholarships available. So those two options are there for you. Don't feel despondent simply because you can't rustle up the cash today. Okay, does that answer your question?
So this question is from Mrs. Krishnan. What about the hostel accommodation? What arrangements are made for social distancing with the hostels?
See, No. In the hostels, we have already, previously the hostels used to be 4 guys to a room, 4 people to a room, guys or girls is immaterial. The hostels are almost identically made. But we have cut that down to 2 persons per room. And before that also might get cut down further depending on whatever is the latest medical advice at that time. The hostels have been disinfected twice, and they will be disinfected fully a few days before the students officially start arriving. Okay. For distancing, markings have been done within the hostel that if somebody, for example, is using the wash basin, how far should you stand? If somebody is using the bathroom or the toilet, how far do you stand and wait? Okay. So all that has been done. Just for your information, at MIT EDTU, when this whole lockdown happened, about 70, not 50, it's about 70 of our students from various disciplines across the university. This is a university made up of 14 different institutions. And 70 students could not go home. Okay. Now they obviously did not have money. There were no restaurants open anyway. Everything was closed. So even though some of them did not eat in the hostel otherwise and preferred to eat outside, the university told them, guys, now just stay here. You're not stepping out of campus. Reopened the mess with adequate safety measures. And the kids have been eating there peacefully. We continue to take care of them. Whenever they feel unwell, just to give you a reminder, exactly 150 meters from the main gate of the university, our group has a full-fledged 150-bed hospital. Okay, so in case of any medical emergencies, we are not just equipped with doctors, but with a full-fledged hospital belonging to our university right next door. Okay, so we have pretty much geared up for emergencies. Of course, having said that, up till now, there hasn't been that kind of emergency, but if it did occur, we believe we can cope with it. Shrikant, bolo.
Yeah. Sir, are there any restrictions on the MSc semester projects, including actors or some technical support from outside?
There is no technical support from outside which is allowed. All exercises are to be done. All exercises, all projects in any film school are always to be done with the resources available within the institution and which are also going to be common across the board for all students. So I can't have a situation where simply because one person has access to better equipment, he or she gets that in and proceeds to make a technically better looking film. As far as we are concerned, it has to be a level playing field for all students. It's like giving an exam. You know, you can't give a guy special paper to write an exam sheet on. It's exactly the same principle taken to its logical conclusion to filmmaking. So all of you will be using identical equipment so that the test is of how creatively you use that equipment, not of the quality of the equipment which you are using, but of your skills and your creativity and what have you learned. Okay.
So one question here is, will there be any seminar on RED and ARRI camera, and in which year?
And all, see, if you'd want to get a question seminar on RED or ARRI in first year, I don't believe there is any place in the world to do it. What a university or a regular film institute does is, you know, in terms of filmmaking today, when you open the internet and there are thousands of resources available, you can go to the highest thing without knowing your ABC. Essentially, a university or an institution today offers structured education. What that means is you are entering, as far as we are concerned, in terms of filmmaking, you are in nursery school. So you are going to learn the ABC and the 1, 2, 3 first. After that, you will get into the ARRI or the REDS only in your final year. Till then, you are not equipped to understand what is that. So I have to, before hosting a seminar on a ARRI, you can access it on the internet. You can go to the website of ARRI and open it tomorrow and, check it out. There's no big deal in that. It's free of cost. ARRI will be more than willing to share it with you. But today, it will be like a bouncer in cricket. It will go over your head because you don't know the basics of filmmaking or the basics of digital technology. When you have learned certain amount of things, thought about it, seen a certain amount of films for 2 years, then you are ready to progress to that stage. That is what a film school does to you. It's not about getting in and shooting your first exercise on an IMAX camera. It's not about that. It's not about technology. It's about learning how to harness the creativity which is hidden inside you bit by bit and expressing yourself through cinema. The tools will keep changing. Today I may say, show me your compositions on a mobile phone. 2 years from now, I'll say, okay, take an ARRI camera and do it on that. So don't worry about the tools. As your expertise mounts, the school will give you tools which will allow you to express your creativity. Does that answer your question?
And coming Saturday to our webinar on making images. Our Professor Indranil Lahiri, in conversation with cinematographer Ramanujan Datta, will explore the cinematography of feature film Chippa to enlighten students on the art of making images for a cinematic experience.
Scale. Okay. It's unlike Chippa. It's a different film. It's in a different scale. It's also it's a period drama. It's set in 1991.
So, are you using different kind of cameras and lenses for this?
Course, we're using different cameras.
Are your tools changing? Tools changing with different kind of approach, different kind of vision, different kind of storytelling.
Yes. It is also. It's a different director. His vision is different. He's a different person.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were discussing lenses, so with the communication, I understood that he wants a certain kind of an image. So I stuck to a certain kind of a lens for that.
Okay, so you actually the core thing about your kind of vision is, let's put it that way, like you would start with the lens rather than going something with a post production or a filtration in front of the lens. The lens is a core.
No. I'll give you a
vision.
Yes, I'll go with the lens and I'll go with the planning of my lights.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the lens and the lighting that will actually make the image that I want to make. A lot of people might go for post-production. They'll first create a LUT.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do a test shoot. They'll create a LUT and that's how they go about it. There are many ways actually. There are many ways. Cinematography is very broad. That way we use a lot of technologies coming together to make an image. So I mean, it can be used at any way, but my approach would be I always look at the lens first and also the sensor of the camera. I mean, what kind of a sensor? Like an ARRI Alexa has a certain image, RED has a certain image, though we can completely transform them later on post. But what is the base image that I'm looking at? The mother image, which is rather I would call the mother information, because with digital, it's all about information that I have and what kind of information, So yes, the lens and then lighting.
So many times we can't use, because of budget constraints and all that, we can't use very high-end cameras. We would have to do with whatever cameras are available. So like if we really concentrate on the kind of lighting we are doing and the kind of mise-en-scene that we are creating in front of the lens, and that will also add a lot to the film.
Yes.
Yeah.
So see, when we are not being able to use a professional full setup camera, we will go for a smaller single mirrorless DSLR, or there are many options these days. But my only observation around it, and I would also suggest everybody that if you're shooting, there's no problem. Of course, if you're making a film, whatever you have to make it. Now, just plan your production accordingly. Like, say this particular sensor cannot handle the highlight beyond this point.
Right.
So, I mean, then set your exposure there. You need to know your sensor basically very well. And then you have to work out your production around that. So I will never go out at 12 in the afternoon shooting with an A7S. I'll never do that. It's not possible. That's sacrilege. I mean, I'll rather shoot that at 8 o'clock in the morning or 3:34 in the afternoon. I'll never go for a top light because that sensor cannot handle it. So understanding that sensor and the latitude and the resolution also matters. And especially with semi-professional cameras, I would personally go through the entire workflow once before confirming it.
Do you do that also, like with all your films? Like, do you do a complete test and then see the
Yes,
output?
we do a complete test. I take, but the things that usually limitations are going to the location and lighting it up and all of that does not happen.
Yeah, of course.
We test our sensors, put it through a round of post-production, sit with the colorist, do a certain LUT, and then go ahead about it.
Yeah, we didn't discuss this actually. How was the post-production process? Who was the colorist and how was it?
It was fantastic. Like, I have also worked with Bridge Postworks. Sid Mead was the colorist. I worked with him on Nobleman, and it was amazing. Like, the kind of confidence that Sid Mead gives and comes with, the kind of knowledge, the kind of, and especially with things being digital, the clarity that he comes with is amazing. And also he has he understands, I think. I mean, he understands. He gets the pulse. In a day or two, he will reach there. What I'm looking at, he'll understand. And then by the time the third and the fourth day is already, done a round, and then probably I'll go and like fine tune a little here and there.
One last question. Like, how long was this process of Chippa? Like, from ideation to, I mean, the film now we are watching on Netflix. And
a year.
Year. Okay.
Yes. Year, not about releasing. This was made we shot this in 2017, December. And we started production, pre-production around September. Around September, it was ready. Of 2018. Yes, it took a year to make the entire film.
And how many days of shoot?
We shot around 20 days.
Okay.
Yeah, very less, but challenging. But
very, very, very beautifully done. Like, we were very drawn to the film. And
also, another thing I wanted to share is that, Chippa was shot for the big screen. We never knew that the only form of viewership is going to be on OTT platforms where people are viewing it in smaller screens. And especially being cinematographers, we are very anal about the final output. Like, if I go to a friend's place and see a television that's not calibrated, we'll cringe. Like, I will cringe. Like, how can you look at this image? And for a person like me, having no control over the final viewership of the product, I mean, it's a very, like, I sometimes get trouble with it, but then I don't have any control. Also, these days, when we are taking out DCPs, there are usually two DCPs that come out. One is for theatrical and the other is for OTT.
I see.
Yes. So the OTT has a kind of standardized standardized thing that they come out with, which kind of fits. Now, screens we don't have control over.
Yeah.
But the tech specs of online streaming is compensated for.
So is there two kinds of, I mean, you're doing the color, the colorists would do two kinds of work for an OTT and or a big screen or something? No. Your
Yes. No, I mean, it's just before bringing out the DCP, there are these two settings that are applied for two DCPs. They are pre-done by the lab.
Anything you would like to share? Anything more? I think we are.
So there are a couple of questions. So if we can ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Mangesh wants to ask: is director involvement is there in setting up a frame?
Yes, of course. Yes. So what happens is when we are shooting a scene, we set it up while the director spends time with the actor, and then once the frame is set, I'll call the director. Director will check the frame, will give his suggestions, and then we'll do the adjustments and then go ahead. Till the time the director says yes to a frame, we do not go ahead with it.
Okay, so there is one more question. Basically, every aspiring student who wants to be a cinematographer, he normally asks as to what sort of cameras we have in our institution. But how?
Sorry, we are losing you. Shrikant sir, your voice is not audible.
Shrikant sir, you can share the question maybe on the screen and we can answer.
I think we're losing him, but I think what Shrikant sir was trying to was asking is that like when students are coming here, a lot of I think it's alive. Shrikant sir,
yeah, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, we
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Basically, a lot of students, they are more inclined towards learning camera instead of developing or knowing what has to be captured. So some sort of vision has to be developed. So I would like you to give some sort of input on that, so it will be helpful for the students.
Okay, so the thing is that we need to learn both, and both are equally important. As important as knowing my camera, it's also important to understand what needs to be captured. Now, the second part of it, what needs to be captured, is an understanding, which I'm learning even today. It will constantly be evolving. It's a constant evolution process that we have to go through. But the process has to start. Now the process has to start from within. It has to start from within, and then film school is the best place because you, being a cinematography student, you are collaborating with an entire direction batch. You have so many direction students who are directors, and you have to start. I mean, whenever you get a script, you start thinking of how to best portray this, how to best picturize this. That is how it has to happen.
Right, sir.
We constantly need to do this, what we call agitation propaganda. Agitation propaganda. I mean, we're constantly brainstorming around how best to bring it out, whatever written material that is.
So a lot of clarity and probably one person's connection to oneself also really matters, as you were saying about your connection to your memory, your connection to your childhood. A lot of filmmakers we have seen who make so much of film from the nostalgia, from their whatever they've left behind.
But there's a certain amount of cutting off is also required. I mean, we are constantly we tend to get swayed with our emotions, but there is a point when we need to cut that and say, no, logically, does this work or not? Because emotions is something very personal. So it might work for me and it might not work for you.
Absolutely.
So at that point of time, we need to cut off and say, does it logically work? So we need to go back to say, Eisenstein kind of a thinking. Where we completely do that Kuleshov experiment, where there is the emotion is being created by the maker. So that kind of a thing.
By a certain formula, by a certain.
Yes. So there has to be the artist and the engineer both lying within us, and we need to explore both.
Absolutely. As a cinematographer, we really need to be also very good with our technical work and our operations and everything, but really like we need to imagine beyond. We really
another thing, especially with the students, another thing I want to tell about the students that nobody taught me is that when we join film school, we are constantly soaking ourselves to a very artistic space. But when I finally landed up on the floor, as a cinematographer of a film, I realized it's not only about art. It's about engineering, and the biggest part, it's about managing a team. It's about working with people. It's a cinematographer on a given setup, on an average given setup, will have a unit of say 30 to 40 people who's working only with the cinematographers. To understand,
to be the head of the department of 40 people who taking your, to be aligned, 40 people aligned for the same, and finally it's the same image.
Yes.
It's that frame.
Yes, and if I don't have the vision, what will those do? And not only having the vision will work, also communicating, articulating my vision. That's the biggest thing. If I'm not being able to articulate, there's no point. So these are the bigger things that we need to learn. These are the bigger things that we need to take care of.
That comes also with a lot of experience, that kind of articulation.
Yes.
You being very sure about yourself.
Yes, it's always an evolution process. Like we are constantly evolving. Even today, there is so much that I'm learning. With every film, I learn something new.
So what happens with our career after the BSc in filmmaking course?
See, basically, we are a very new film school, but we do have very close, what is called in academic terms as industry connect, which means we do know a few cameramen, we do know a few editors, we do know a few sound people, we do know a few colorists, we do know a few script writers who come and do workshops for us. Because remember, in any film school, all the teaching is not done by our permanent faculty. There are plenty of guest faculty, visiting faculty who come there. They are adjunct faculties, people who have other things to do but are coming and teaching here part-time. So we use lots of those facilities, and these people become the base for you to move to the next phase. We also do one more thing for you to give you a base into the practicing film industry. In Pune, there is the Pune International Film Festival held every year, and SFT is co-host of that. So by default, you attend all the screenings and you meet all the people who come to attend the festival. By people, I don't mean crowds of film enthusiasts who come and see the films, but actual practicing film people, actors, producers, cameramen, sound people, editors, various people come and watch films and hold seminars, hold interactions. Some of the interactions are not even public. They're just held for SFT students. So you wouldn't have heard of them if you read the media alone. But we do give you these opportunities to interact with professional people. Because remember, this is not a business which works by way of your CV going to somebody and the person declaring that, let me see if I need to hire this guy or not. This is a business which works by word of mouth. So somebody comes to do a cinematography workshop, likes a particular boy, and the next time somebody is looking for an assistant, he recommends that this particular boy is quite good, why don't you hire him? And that is how most of us end up getting our first jobs in different disciplines. Our first batch of people which finished last year and got their degrees in convocation in February are all peacefully employed within days of getting their work. Actually, we hadn't realized, we thought these fellows are going to be unemployed for a while. But in the first quarter of this year, there was so much work going around that everybody with any qualifications gets work. After the first day at work, nobody gives a damn for your qualifications. Please remember that in this business. Absolutely nobody cares. You know, it's like going to a doctor. You enter a doctor's clinic by looking at his qualification. After that, you don't give a damn. You worry about how you interact with the doctor. It's the same with a cameraman or editor or sound recordist. Everybody worries about how you behave on the job and how you are to deal with. So then it's really up to you how you build up your career. There are no fixed paths. There are a few million ways of approaching your career. Some of you may decide that you want to be an assistant cameraman and graduate to be cameraman. Others may decide that you're safer joining a television station. Yet others may decide that, you know, this is not my scene at all. I want to be in programming and sit and decide how the kind of programs which appear. So there are career options which you'll have to take the call on. I can't do it on your behalf. I can just lay out the options. Yes, sir.
They are all professionals from the industry like Dharam Gulati, Mahesh Ane, Javed Syed, who have made hundreds of films, and they're
in talks with senior film and TV editor Javed Syed on his upcoming webinar, What is Film Editing?
I have passed my cinema diploma in editing from FTII and passed out in 1971 with Star and Style Gold Medal. After that I shifted to Mumbai and started editing there. Lots of feature films like Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman, Yes Boss, Phir Bhi Dil Hai Hindustani, Kya Kehna, Salim Langde Pe Matro, Naseem, and so many others. I did several Marathi films also, like Ek Dav Bhutacha, Pandarichi Wari, and so many others. I am naming a few of them. And then I shifted to video editing. I started with the serial Khandan and then moved on to Nukkad and then Intezar, Circus. Wagle Ki Duniya was one of them. I won Maharashtra State Award for Best Editing in feature film, Marathi feature film for the film Resham Gathi in 1989, I think. Then again in 89-90 I won award for best editing serial of Wagle Ki Duniya and many others.
What do you think has evolved in editing, I mean from the previous years to now to the digital era? I mean, you have seen a lot. So,
I started with film editing and then shifted to video editing with low band, high band, then Vita, and then came this digital and all that. And I find that things have become very easy now with digital. Linear editing was very, very difficult, very tedious. And this non-linear thing has made things, you can play with your material like anything. Add anything, subtract anything, insert something, remove something at ease.
The technology has helped the students today, but what do you think they should remember from, from aesthetics point of view of filmmaking?
See, technology has made things very easy. But at the same time, they should remember and they should know the aesthetics of editing. Because the principle of editing has remained the same. It cannot be changed. The method, the system, the style. The only thing is the instruments have changed. The equipment has changed. Life has become easier. Like earlier, if I had to increase some shot, the length or the beginning of the end or the beginning of the shot, it was very difficult to find out from so many cans lying in the editing room, okay, where this particular piece of film may be there. But now it has become so easy. You just press your match the frame and the frame is there in front of you and you can do anything you want. Or you can go to add edit or any other form. You know, there are so many ways of doing it. Earlier it was only one way. Find out your clipping, open the joint and make another joint. So, see how things have changed. When I started, it was a cement joint, which was very difficult to remove. Then came the tape splicers, which was very easy. Open the tape, remove the sellotape, make a joint, put the sellotape back again. So things have changed, you know, considerably, and now it's become very easy.
So there are a lot of opportunities for them in, I mean, it's not the OTT market is there over the top and television.
There is a lot of scope because so many channels have come up, all the GEC channels. Earlier it was only the Doordarshan channel. Then there are now so many GEC channels and they are running 24 hours a day, 7 days in a week. So a lot of software is required to run all these channels. So there is a lot of scope. But I must say that the students here must try to become number one. Learn everything here and then go in the market. Because once you know things and you do a good job, automatically your name will come up and things will be very easy for you. You will get your job, and once you earn a name, money automatically follows you.
What do you think of the facilities here at MIT School of Film and Television?
See, I was always hearing about MIT, but I came now and I was surprised to see such a vast area and so many people here involved in teaching the students. And I have seen most of them are veterans. So the students, and lot of students, I've never seen so many students in a film school as MIT. And with such vast faculty and experienced faculty, I think the students will definitely benefit from here. And the MIT students, when they will go out in the market, they will definitely make a name for themselves.
See, any film institute is not just about the faculty which we employ full time. It is also about the visiting faculty and the guest faculty that we get. Even though our film institute is fairly new, it's just 4 years old, we have built up a fairly extensive network of visiting faculty of different areas who come to teach our students whenever they can find the time. And that becomes the core of your proceeding to the next base.
Mr. One of MIT School of Film and Television. Welcome to our webinar on understanding the art of sound recording and designing in conversation with sound designer Nakul Kamte and Professor Gyanesh Kelkar. Nakul Kamte's journey with sound ignited early in his life. He moved to California to study analog sound engineering. After returning to India, he did thousands of act films to finally get his first break in feature films with late Mukul Anand's Das, and then moving on to the long and winding road of cinema. He has backed several national and international awards on this journey and continues to do so. In our webinar, we'll be discussing his journey from analog to digital and the challenges faced today in recording and designing sound for cinema and immersive OTT platform.
Okay. First question to all of you. How many people do we have on this?
About 40.
Okay. First question would
45.
be, what do you think, what is the first object which comes into your head when you hear the word sound or sound for film?
Anybody can answer?
Dialogues.
This now called sound mixer. It's the same. It's the same thing, because a recordist is someone who pushes a button. A mixer is someone who does a lot more. You are actually mixing the tracks so that you can give a mixed track which can be used for the edit. Yeah, I've seen suddenly like it just comes out to in a bang thing. All right. So first question is, what do you think when you hear the word sound? Anyone?
Sir, dialogues.
Yeah, okay. That's one thing. If
Yeah,
is
people
that
are giving answer. People are giving background music. The people are giving answer. The space, recorder, all these answers. We are getting.
the first thing I think about when I see sound is a waveform. And what you have to learn before you get onto, while you're still in school and learning, is what is a waveform? How do you manipulate a waveform? Different ways of manipulating a waveform to achieve the goal which you want. To me, that is important, because nowadays with the software which you have, if you do not know what a waveform looks like, or if you have no understanding of what FFT screens looks like, you're going to be hampered. So you need to know these things. The second thing to me, when I hear sound, is to me, it's about using my ears and listening.
Yes.
Anagram of listen is silent. Silent and listen are the two, they're diametrically opposed. But if you think about it, it's extremely crucial to what you're going to be doing. The main thing you're doing on location is to get dialogues as cleanly as possible. To do this, you have lapel microphones, you have shotgun microphones, and you have small condenser microphones. The reason for having small condenser microphones is once you get into school and you learn about shotguns and the theory of and the way shotguns work, you will realize that they're really bad to use shotguns in an indoor space. Because given the construction of the shotgun microphone, it is going to cause more echoes in your recording in an indoor space, which is why you would use a small diaphragm microphone for indoor recordings. By small diaphragm, just so for those of you who want to write down model numbers, so say if you're using an MKH 60 and 70 or 416 outdoors, you would be using an MKH 40 or an MKH 50 indoors. They've all got little different patterns. The reason why I sometimes would use a 40 instead of a 50, though 50 has more punch to it on the voice, is because if they're two actors who are close, it helps because it spreads it. It's easier to pan with that. It's not as sharp, or definition is better. The other reason why I might use a 40 is if I have an inexperienced boom operator who is not in the exact position. One of the most important things you're going to learn when you realize when you start doing location sound is that the most important part of your setup, forget the recorder, forget the microphones, forget everything, is your boom operator. Without my boom operator, I'm useless.
Yeah, very true.
Operator to the sound recordist or sound mixer, the same as a focus puller is to a DOP or a cameraman. You cannot operate without that. Basic first rule. As I said, you need to learn, and you will through experience, of choosing locations which are good. If that is within, I try and go for location recce's. So I can tell my director that this scene is not going to work because there's this or the, whatever the reasons are. If someone wants to shoot a scene indoor where it's supposed to be a quiet house in the middle of a village, and in actual reality, it looks quiet like a quiet house because your production designer has done a great job and made it look like that. But if the location is right next to a bus terminal where you have buses coming and going with air horns, you're not going to get anything. So it's also got to do with a little bit of thinking and planning. Planning is extremely crucial in a film.
I mean, I do go there personally to lecture and introduce a lot of films. At least once a month I'm there, but it's quite a trek. It's quite a trek from Loni. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Yeah, this is something which you have already answered. So, Vidam is asking, is there any chance in this year for us to go to MIT?
See, we are all planning that you be here on 1st of September. And we are going to begin your education as far as SFT and the School of Drama are concerned on the 1st of September. Till what time we will have to do it online only? And when will it become a mix of online and offline? Nobody can say today. Let me open the chat myself and answer a few questions. It's really up to you how you build up your career. There are no fixed paths. There are a few million ways of approaching your career. Some of you may decide that you want to be an assistant cameraman and graduate to be cameraman. Others may decide that you're safer joining a television station. Yet others may decide that, this is not my scene at all. I want to be in programming and sit and decide the kind of programs which appear. So there are career options which you'll have to take the call on. I can't do it on your behalf. But let me put it this way. The media industry in India is currently expanding in a very, very big way. Okay, let me just throw some statistics at you. At the moment in India, there are 1,800 working television stations, okay, in all the languages put together because they are obliged to get a license from Government of India. Now, very literally, you could walk into any one of them and they would respect your qualifications and give you a job, okay? Beyond that, let's go a little beyond that. If you go beyond that, if you look at just the advertising industry, for example, advertising filmmaking in India is today worth 3,500 crore rupees. Okay, that is huge chunks of money. Now somebody's got to make those goddamn ads. Now that is where you characters will come in. You are the guys who are going to do it. There may be some other people who are the top of the rung right now, but start working somewhere and you'll progress there and get there very fast if you have the ideas and inclination. Let me give you another example. If you look at the private people making television fiction, that's another 4,000 crore rupees a year industry. Most people don't realize it, but there is more money going around in advertising and television program making than in feature films today. Okay. But having said that, in India today, we have our reach of our cinema halls only covers 3.5% of our population. The most popular film in India by ticket sales is Bajrangi Bhaijaan. And if you count the number of tickets sold by Bajrangi Bhaijaan and divide the population of India, the 130 crores that we are, then what is it that you come up with? You come up with 3.5% of the population. Now, why is that so? That is so because we don't have the cinemas. At the moment, we have only about 16,000 cinema halls in India, which is a huge jump from 20 years back, but it's still nowhere near sufficient to, serve our population properly. Now, if that figure of cinema halls were to go up to, let us say, China's level, where they have 40,000 cinema halls, now suddenly your reach goes from 3.5% of the population to 8 to 9% of your population. And then suddenly Salman Khan will be charging 200 crores, not 50 crores per film, because his popularity will go up that much. But end of the day, who's going to shoot those films? Who's going to edit those films? Who's going to do sound for those films? It'll be characters like you. That is where you fit in. And it's not just Hindi cinema. It's Marathi cinema is undergoing a boom. There's Gujarati cinema around there. Tamil films are there. Telugu films are there. Malayalam films are there. Kannada films are there. We do plenty of films in Punjabi. We do 32 films in Ladakhi language every year. Ever heard of them? Nobody in his right mind in India has heard of them. But they are made. They are there. Somebody's making them. They're boys and girls like you making them. So never be despondent about it. You are the guys who are going to create your future. Chal Shrikant, let's move to the next.
Yeah. Does our university have any collaboration with NFAI? Do we have any facility to watch films that are not available on the internet?
See, NFAI has a scheme whereby not just us, but anybody who wants to watch films there can come and do so within office hours on free of cost. Okay, number one. Number two, they also have screenings in cinema halls, which is their cinema hall, which are held every Saturday. They have a film club, and for a nominal 600 or 700 rupees per year, they allow you to become members, and then you can watch all the films for 1 year free of cost. Somebody else is asking, I am guessing the transport facility will be worked on once the on-campus lectures begin. Actually, the transport is working even right now, as and when permitted by the Pune government because our offices are open for admissions and administrative work. Our offices are open with 1/3 capacity as permitted by Government of Maharashtra. So for them, the buses are already running. So they've not really stopped. It's just a matter of expanding that service as and when students become, we get the green signal from the government that, okay, you can run it. We do run, for those of you who don't know, let me just restate, we do run buses of MIT from all parts of Pune in the morning and in the evening to drop you back. So we do run a full-fledged mess on campus, so which gives you breakfast and lunch and dinner as much as you'd like to eat. Beyond that, if you want to know about the staying facilities, we do have on-campus hostel facilities, and we do have certain amount of buildings which are under contract with MIT within easy walking distance, also available for you. Beyond that, a lot of people, because these are all traditional hostels, which means the normal rules of hostels apply, that you can only, you can't get out of there beyond a certain time. And in the morning, you can only get out at a certain time and things like that, which students get tired of beyond a point and want to be on their own. So a lot of our students do live off campus in accommodation of their own within Loni, where they can literally walk down to the university, or nearby up to Shevalwadi and Hadapsar, from where they catch buses or have bikes or two-wheelers and come on that. So there are various options. Our advice to out-of-towners is that try and look at accommodation within the hostel system for the first year, because you don't know the city, you don't know anything there. Once you make friends and you get familiar with things, then you can go off on your own.
So there's one question from Rhythm. He's asking, sir, I guess we will need to think about and apply for hostel accommodation once there is a green signal that we can go to MIT.
It's simpler if you apply for that right now so that the university can keep a seat for you. Okay? Because if you wait till such time as when it opens one fine day, you may find that there are no more seats available. Because remember, we are one of the smallest outfits within the MIT family. Okay, drama is even smaller than us, but that's because they are all of 1 year old. So that's fairly new. But when you look at our larger organizations, I mean, our engineering colleges and things like that, those guys take many more students. So they will tend to block up these facilities even before you'll get a chance. I don't know about whether you will not be required to pay your fees now, I guess. But you'll probably वो बता दो क्या चक्कर है?
I have given two names, Shrikant Kulkarni and Sushil Nirgude.
Yeah.
With the mail on the mail in which I have mailed them the selection letters, so they can call these two gentlemen and inquire about the hostel. They are the best people to answer your calls because now hostel is handled centrally by the university. We don't have any hand in allocating hostels to you anymore. So I request everyone to please call Mr. Shrikant Kulkarni or Mr. Sushil Nirgude and check about the hostel accommodations. That's it. So there are no more questions. Anyone?
अभी देशमुख साहब क्वेश्चन नहीं है तो अमोल देशमुख in a dramatic manner as head of drama will give a little speech.
Thank you, sir.
हाँ बताइए अपने स्कूल के बारे में इन लोगों को बताइए.
जी वैसे तो इंटरव्यू के दौरान ही मैंने MIT के बारे में आप सभी को स्कूल ऑफ ड्रामा के बारे में डिटेल में बताया है. मुझे लगता है कोरोना के आने के बाद सबसे ज्यादा अगर इफेक्ट कोई सेक्टर पे पड़ा है तो एजुकेशन सेक्टर पे पड़ा है. लेकिन इन सब प्रॉब्लम्स के बावजूद हम सभी ने जो एक ऑनलाइन प्रोग्राम बनाया है उससे परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स इस फील्ड में जो आना चाहते हैं उनके सामने एक रास्ता खोल दिया है. मुझे लगता है कि ये बहुत चिंता का विषय था कि परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स ऑनलाइन क्लासेस किस तरह से हो सकेगी. हम तो वहाँ फिजिकली है नहीं तो कैसे इस तरह से हम क्लासेस कर पाएंगे. तो देखिए परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स में ये होता है कि मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ शरीर और मन का संतुलन बहुत जरूरी है. तो ये परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स में जिस तरह शारीरिक तैयारी हमें करनी होती है वैसे ही मन की तैयारी भी बहुत जरूरी है. और वो मन की तैयारी करने के लिए भी हमें वक्त लगता है क्योंकि हम अलग अलग स्ट्रीम से आए हुए हैं. कोई कॉमर्स पढ़ा है, किसी ने हिस्ट्री पढ़ी है, किसी ने साइंस पढ़ा है. तो परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स का भी एक जो शास्त्र है, साइंस है, उसे हमें समझना होगा. उसके लिए अपनी मन की तैयारी करनी होगी. और ये मन के तैयारी के लिए जो भी जरूरी होती है वो क्लासेस हम सभी क्लासेस हमने ऑनलाइन करने की यहाँ हम प्रयत्न करेंगे. जो कि पहले 2 महीने में जिस तरह से हमने क्लास डिजाइन की है वो आपको जो है एक हिस्ट्री का इंट्रोडक्शन और फिर परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट्स में किस तरह से थिएटर का अपना एक महत्व है और उसके लिए क्या क्या तैयारियां करनी जरूरी है, इस तरह से हमने डिजाइन किया है जो कि बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है. ये क्लासेस होने के बाद ही आपको लगेगा, समझ में आएगा कि हाँ जिस रास्ते पर हम जाना चाहते हैं वो रास्ता बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है और जिस तरह के चेंजेस हम में आने चाहिए उसकी भी इंफॉर्मेशन इन्हीं क्लासेस के थ्रू हम देने का हमने सोचा है। तो कोई डरने की जरूरत नहीं, सारी क्लासेस आपकी जो है ऑनलाइन वो डिजाइन हो चुकी है। और यहाँ MIT स्कूल ऑफ ड्रामा जो कि 3 साल का ये कोर्स है, डिग्री कोर्स, ये मैंने आपको कहा था कि इस कैंपस में और सारे भी कलाओं के जो स्कूल है, जैसे म्यूजिक का है, स्कल्पचर का है, डिजाइन का है, योगा यहाँ पढ़ाया जाता है। तो सारे स्कूल यहाँ हमें नजदीक है, और ये इन सभी के इनपुट्स लेकर जो है हम एक कलाकार को यहाँ बनाने की कोशिश करते हैं। और ऐसा नहीं है कि ऑनलाइन क्लासेस में केवल थ्योरेटिकल ही क्लासेस होगी, लेकिन हम कुछ प्रैक्टिकल क्लासेस भी हमने डिजाइन की है, जिसके द्वारा आप थ्योरी और प्रैक्टिकल का कॉम्बिनेशन जो है वो साथ में रख पाएंगे और आगे बढ़ पाएंगे। तो इससे रिलेटेड अगर आपके मन में अभी भी कुछ सवाल है तो आप मुझे पूछ सकते हो सर। श्रीकांत जी।
सर ऐसा तो कोई क्वेश्चन किसी का है नहीं। Anyone wants to ask any question?
Otherwise, let Yash wind up the session if all is set.
Yes. Yeah, as Tyagi sir put it, we are having online classes as well as classes on the campus. And our campus is totally outside Pune. It is about 20 kilometers away from the station. It's a 125-acre campus. It's complete. The environment is very good. It's clean air, and you really do not need to worry about COVID here, because I don't think there are any cases around there. Our campus is right now open. All our professors.
We've lost his connection.
Yeah. It seems like, yes.
Okay, let me just
go
complete.
To the campus. We have the students of the last batch having hello.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You can continue.
Yeah. Our students, senior students, are already completing their projects now. They have been working online since March. Lot of students have done even short films, which have been put up for various festivals now. So, as regards, we have prepared for the institution to start operation from 1st of September. And hopefully, you will be on campus from 1st of September. If not, might be a bit later. But our classes, online classes, as well as campus classes, will start from 1st of September. In case you are in the red zone and you are not able to attend for some particular reason, and the rest of the students are on campus, you will be still covered online, as we have a virtual lab system which has been implemented. We are tied up with Tata TCS Ion, as well as we have a virtual lab which will be conducted. Okay, thank you very much. If anybody has any more questions or doubts.
Iyer wants to talk something.
Yeah.
Kainath, the answer for your question is probably yes, but if you can speak to Mr. Srikanth Kulkarni or Mr. Sushil Gode, it would be better. They are the right people to answer your call. There is one more question from Mandara here. If we have to apply for a loan from bank in IT campus, do we need to come to the campus? Mandar, this bank is the Bank of India. Basically, we have our account with Bank of India and also with HDFC Bank. So if that gives an advantage for you to reach out to any branch of Bank of India, you can go there and probably tell them that this is the thing and you want to apply for the loan. If any documents which I can give you probably so that your process of loan gets easier, let me know. I can help you out of that. Okay. Yes, sir. Apart from what yes sir said, our campus has a big ground for cricket and football. We have Olympic-sized swimming pool. We also have a boxing ring, huge yoga center, basketball courts, plenty of things for students' recreation. It's a beautiful campus. The campus is open for the parents to come and check.
Maybe you should also tell them that we do host Persona, one of Pune's biggest youth festivals for every year. We do host a very big inter-college festival in Pune every year for 3 days, which at that time you'll actually see how many students are there in our campus, because normally all 5,000 students are never there together. If they were to come together, you know, there is very little space left. And in the days of the festival, besides our 5,000, their friends come in and students from other colleges come in, because it's held over a weekend, so that the rock bands can play all night kind of thing. So it's not like a university campus is only about reading books and learning about things and getting marks. It's about growing, and growing means having fun with making friends. So there'll be ample opportunities to do all that. And within that, see, let me just describe to you very, very physically what happens. You come to, let us say, the film school or the drama school, which are on the same floor. Above us is a school of broadcast journalism, who are also people interested in audiovisual media, but from as the point of view of journalists, we distinguish that. Next door to us is the School of Architecture and the Institute of Design, and a School of Music and a School of Dance and a School of Fine Arts or Painting. So all these things exist within, literally within 12 to 15 meters of where you are studying filmmaking. Now, those are the guys who are going to be your friends and who you will interact with, and they'll enrich your minds and you'll enrich their minds. That is the whole idea behind having all these institutions under one roof. Beyond that, we've got a massive waterfront. So there's ample opportunity to roam around with your friends and have fun. So come, have fun, learn about filmmaking. Okay, we are through.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Let's log off and call it a day. Any further questions? We are always available, so don't worry. This is not the end of the world. This is the beginning of a relationship, right?
Absolutely.
And we have been doing online education before also, which we did with Ryerson University before. They've done online filmmaking where students from all over the world join together and put together an international television program. So it is not a new technology which is there. It is not because of COVID, but it has been used all along. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming over. Thanks a lot. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, I'm logging off, Yashwantrao.
Okay, okay.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.